Welcome to the Navigating Your Life show. I'm your host, Nat Williams. Tonight we'll take a look at the issue of substance abuse. We'll review the multiple forms of substance abuse and provide some insight that college students shared with us on their awareness on the topic, and discuss some intervention strategies. To highlight some of the most current statistics available, it is believed that an estimated 22.3 million people 12 years or older were classified with a substance abuse dependence. Marijuana is the most commonly used illicit drug in the United States, and 86% of the 4.6 million people who consumed alcohol began drinking younger than the age of 21. Recently, I had the opportunity to sit down with some students from Northampton Community College to discuss what they know about substance abuse, and here's what they shared. Well, I want to thank you, Nadine and Ryan and Tina, for joining us today. What has been your awareness or experience with drug use or substance abuse among young adults?
I think that's becoming more of a socially accepted thing that's becoming more popular here, like in the U.S. And I think as students, or whether high school or college or much older than that, are becoming more aware of and I guess participating more in.
Wow.
I would say like growing through high school, like it would be common for them to use it. It's common to talk about it. It's common to, invite even. So it's like Nadine said, socially acceptable now. It's getting more socially acceptable, wow. I think.
What is the role that peer pressure is playing in the use of drugs and alcohol and other substances? What do you think could be done to try to help address this issue?
Well, I think a lot of this derives from the home. So I think if the parents were to educate, their children about, what are the results of doing drugs and how it can affect your life and your mentality and like your physical, your mental, attributes. And I think that would make a big difference because, yeah, of course, a person can also learn it in school and through other outside sources, but it really starts to within the home, home with their parents, being more aware of how drugs really can affect a child.
What if you find a person who's trying to cover it up? How far would you go to pulling that cover off of them?
I think it depends on the age of the person. If the person was underage, I would try to talk to their parents, or even, if they were in high school, teachers and whatnot. But if they were an adult, I would tell them what's bad, what's good, what's bad, but it's up to them. They're adults, so I would leave it up to them. But I will tell them. I will, like she said, try to be a good influence and try to show them what's out there. But at the end of the day, it's up to them.
I would, if it was like a friend or someone I even knew, I would try to help them as much as possible. Because I think once it gets too far, then it's harder. So if you start to help in the beginning, then I think it would be easier than to wait a while and then start to try to help.
And if you were asked to speak to people who were having a problem with substances and could give them some words of advice, what would you say?
There are other things in life that we can look at, some other opportunities that you can grasp. Drugs are not, that's not your way to escape, that's not what we should rely on in life, because once you start always relying on that, then once you get older, it'll be much harder for you to get out of it, and then you'll only focus on that and nothing else, on the other important values that are, also outside of drugs, whether it's family or education or friends or, work,
Well, I will try to inspire them and motivate them, because I feel like a lot of people that do drugs, they might have problems at home or other reasons, and they might feel like they're not, they might not be able to accomplish their dreams because of other reasons. So I will try to inspire them and tell them that they can do it, and there are other things in life that it's more beautiful than.
I would just say life has so much to offer, and once you're on substances and stuff, that becomes your life. And if you're on it, then you can't experience everything else that life has to offer.
Thank you to the students at Northampton Community College for providing us with their insight. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk with two counseling professionals.
Are you ready to experience personal success in all 8 domains of life? Then join Dr. Nat Williams for the Absolutes of Success Weekend Transformation Program at Tucson, Arizona, and achieve your greatest potential. Registration includes a 2-night stay with meals at the beautiful Westward Look Resort. Register today, only $6.99, or register with a friend and pay only $9.99 with shared room. Call 1-800-810-3683 or visit absolutesofsuccess.com.
Jay, age 12, loves sports and learning new activities. He participates in a church youth group. He's learning to play the drums in his school band. He's in the 6th grade, and Jay benefits from a special education program and individual attention. When he's not in school, he likes playing video games, creating art, and spending time with his friends. And when Jay grows up, he wants to be a professional artist. Jay's dream is to be adopted. His ideal family would have a mom and a dad and some siblings. He also loves dogs, and hopefully the family would have one. For adoption information, please access the National Adoption Center's website at www.adopt.org. And for further information specifically on Jay, please contact Crystal Allen at callen@adopt.org.
At Bridge to Creative Learning and Child Care Center, your child will learn and play the creative way in a safe and secure environment. We offer a fun and caring educational-based atmosphere and allow parents to monitor their child's activities. We are a state-licensed child care center offering academic preparation, after-school programs, creative learning, summer activities, and much more. Call us at 610-351-7400. Prepare your child for a brighter future.
Well, welcome back to the Navigating Your Life show. I'd like to welcome to the studio today Dr. Tim Silvestri, who's the Assistant Director and Coordinator of the Lafayette College Counseling Center, as well as Michael Ramsey, who's the Clinical Supervisor of the Family Intervention Program at Valley Youth House. So welcome, Doc.
Right.
And welcome, Mike. Thanks
you.
for being here. Well, let's get started. Let's start with you, Doc. How would you define substance abuse?
So I would define in 2 ways. The clinical way would be a maladaptive pattern of use, interfering with some or more than one major life activities, work, social life, family, things like that. The only caveat I would say to that would be, if you think about most folks out in the community, we spend a lot of time talking clinical and thinking, let's define this thing. When for community members, it might even be more effective just to think of it as, is this disrupting my well-being? Is this disrupted well-being? And then you don't have to decide whether this is a clinical issue or not. It's kind of, is it interfering?
Sure. And when you say disrupting, just help us fill in the blank so we're not.
So you're hiding things. It's interfering with your time with your family. It's just starting to kind of bleed into normal life activities. And very often it's kind of living a lie. So people are aware when that's happening, and then they sometimes get bogged down with the clinical rather than just saying, is this really how I want to live?
And I think what you're trying to do is to break it down to real life terms. If it doesn't feel right, Houston, we're not cleared for takeoff.
Exactly, and deal with it, do something about it,
And Mike, in your work with families and intervening and trying to help them, how do you agree with that?
I would completely agree. I think when the focus for that individual becomes on using the substance and the other parts of their life start to become less important, you look at it as start to be a big issue. So whether that's work, school, family, other things that take a back seat to the drug or alcohol use.
And when you see that there's a problem, Mike, how has your organization, how does your staff, how do they intervene?
I think it depends on where the family is at, starting from. I think that my program specifically works with the family as a whole. So while the individual using substances will be getting some kind of treatment, whether that's inpatient or intensive outpatient, my program works with the substance abuser as well as the rest of the family to look at the pattern that allowed that use to continue. And no matter what treatment happens, unless that pattern changes, it puts you at risk for the substance use to continue.
So let's say you're a person that has experienced someone disclosing that they have a challenge with substances. For a lot of people, that's not the world they live in, so it's shocking to them.
It is.
So how do you get over your own stuff so that you can be able to support that person with their issues?
Right, and like anything, this person has been kind of coming to this point for a long time, and now the other person's trying to catch up immediately. I would say seek help. You know, there's professionals out there. You don't have to do it alone, and if you do it alone, you know, maybe you don't get it right, but with help, that would... the other thing is to know that support is absolutely the most important thing, and that this is going to be a process. So someone might slip back. And when they slip back, every time, there's a saying kind of, every time someone tries again, they're twice as likely to succeed. So those relapses are not necessarily failure, they're expected, but if they quit again, if they make that change again, they're twice as likely to succeed, and eventually that kind of geometrically adds up to real change. So
and one of the things that you've heard is about tough love, and you know, when someone has gone down that path, cutting them off. I know every situation is different. Do you think that that has a place, especially in that network and family, to say enough is enough? And I know that every case is different, but what would you say is a general rule?
What works for one person might not work for another in terms of their recovery. I think the critical piece is the support without judgment. I think when people are going through that process, that concern of others can often get misinterpreted as judgment. Some of the shame that goes along with addiction and substance use, especially in families, can get interpreted in so many different ways. There's so many emotions that are involved with it. I think it's part of the piece where intervention, individual counseling, family counseling can really be a helpful piece in making sure the messages get across in a way that they don't get misinterpreted as judgment, anger, blame of that person, or blame of self-blame, the individual or the parent of a child who's using.
And Doc, I'm sure that you talk to a lot of people about the role that they play as the person who may be experiencing the challenge of substances, but also their family. You know, a lot of times you hear the role of the enabler and others. What is the importance of understanding those roles? What does that do if you now understand that you're an enabler, or you understand that you're the person that they blame? What does that do with respect to a person's recovery, being able to know who's who?
Yeah, I mean, and it's a complex web. So you're trying to rebuild or to facilitate a new relationship and deal with this addiction thing at the same time. Mike, having dealt with that's really, I'll bump that to him. He's dealt with hundreds of families, for years now. So
well, and like you say, you're trying to facilitate a new family pattern, and so you want to do that with professional help as well. It comes back to that support. If you've identified certain issues, whether it's enabling or something else, then you're going to need to address that specifically with a professional rather than try and manage it on your own.
And I think that sometimes those labels are helpful to understand what the map is and who's who. And so a lot of times people didn't know what they were potentially doing and what the consequence was. So that's generally very helpful.
And it leads to a lot of guilt, I think. If somebody feels like they've enabled someone's drug or alcohol use, they tend to do that self-blaming, as they try and evaluate the past. And the focus should be more on how do you get this better rather than being stuck in the past patterns.
Well, we're getting ready to wrap up this segment. I want to make sure that both you and Mike and Tim have a chance to share any closing comments. So Tim, we'll start with you first. What do you want to...
The one thing I would say, just on a community level, and I try to do a lot of community work when I can, and that is just we need to start believing more that success is possible in this, that we can go into a school district, we can go into colleges and universities and really start tackling this issue and succeeding. Best practices are out there, no doubt about it. We can tackle this, but I find that my colleagues sometimes across the country, as well as lay folk, really have a hard time seeing that. So believe that success is possible, and let's work together to do it.
Sure. Sense of hope is important.
The science says we can do it.
Wow.
The science says there's to not have hope is ludicrous at this point.
Well, Mike, in closing, please.
I would want to make sure people know that not only does the person dealing with addiction need professional support, that the family as a whole also needs to get involved with some kind of counseling, whether that's family counseling or individual counseling for them as well, because sometimes they get lost through the treatment process, and they're in need of support as well.
Good. Well, Mike, thank you so much for all you
Thank
do.
you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you so much for coming to today's show to discuss this important and very serious problem, Mike and Tim. You have given us some great insight. We'll have to stop now to take a brief commercial break, and we'll be right back to talk with two more professionals who are from the Caron Institute.
Ready for some fun? FunWorks assists individuals with and without disabilities to participate in community activities. These activities are provided in small settings for 1 to 8 individuals with at least 1 to 2 direct support professionals. We visit places like Dollywood, Willow Valley Inn, Phillies Games, Iron Pigs Games, the Lehigh Valley Zoo, and more. Let us know your dream trip. Our staff is dedicated to ensuring your dream activities come true. For more information, call 888-966-9466 or visit funworksinc.org.
Enrich your life at Sacred Heart Villa, situated atop Mount St. Michael on 40-plus scenic acres. Our caring staff includes missionary sisters and on-site licensed nurses 24/7. We offer medical reminders as well as dispensing medication and transportation to medical appointments. With excellent food, fun events, a spacious hall, safe rooms, and much more, your life will be enriched. Call 610-929-5751 or go to sacredheartvilla-readingpa.org.
Well, welcome back to the Navigating Your Life show. And now joining us in studio is Janice Steyer, who's a clinical coordinator and a therapist, as well as Mylene Kresinowski, who's the executive director for students assistance programs at the Caron Treatment Centers. So thank you, ladies, both for coming in.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
having
Janice.
us.
Thank you,
so
Mylene.
much.
Sure. So please tell us a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, Janice, about what the Caron Treatment Centers does.
Well, Caron's been around for over 50 years, and our mission is to help families recover from addiction and to make some positive changes in their lives.
Wonderful. And you're in charge of the student assistance programs, Mylene. Tell us what that's all about.
That is outreach to schools and communities. We began doing student assistance programs in 1990, and last year alone, we had a presence in over 300 schools, impacting 60,000 young people in regards to prevention and early intervention services and some support services in schools.
So as a parent that's listening to this and they hear that there is a student assistance program in their school, what do you actually do in that school under the auspices of a student assistance program?
We do everything from prevention education in grade levels as low as kindergarten to teaching kids about making healthy decisions. It's more preventative in nature. We're also a part of a student assistance team, which is mandated in Pennsylvania, and that is working collaboratively with school personnel to identify and remove barriers to learning. We sometimes help kids and families access support services and treatment services and provide all different kinds of support groups to help them gain healthy living skills so that they can go on to be healthy contributing citizens.
And so I think one of the beautiful parts of what the Caron Treatment Centers does is they have the residential piece if you have to come and stay with the Caron Treatment Centers for a while, but also you have the prevention stuff that you do as well. So let's talk a little about the residential. Why would a person move into a residential and do inpatient supports and services as opposed to something in the community? What is the distinguishing line that would help a person decide whether they need to be inpatient as opposed to outpatient?
We found that a lot of the patients that come to us have tried outpatient, and because they're still in their home environment with the same access to drugs, the same friends, it's hard for them to stay sober. And so what they need is a structured environment that doesn't give them access to drugs and gives them the structure they need to make some changes.
Okay. And what happens when they return? That environment lots of times is still the same. They've hopefully learned some new skills, but is that enough generally for them to stay away from the substances that they've learned so much about while in residential?
Well, we found that from going directly from primary back into their home environment is really difficult. So we have a step-down program. It's 3 months of treatment that allows them visits home to see what are the dangers, what are the things they struggle with, and then they come back and process that. And when they leave to go home, there is aftercare in place for them.
Wow. So it's all about managing those transitions.
Absolutely.
And not going from feast to famine or back or the vice versa. It's
Yes,
really
exactly.
Wow. Very good. And when you're dealing with students, and again on the prevention side, what do you think is the most important thing in order to prevent their escalation up the ladder of substance abuse? What is it that you'd want people to understand that can be done to prevent the problems that you're seeing in your company that years later?
That's a great question, and I think that the answer has a number of different levels. I think one very important piece is that all of the adults in a child's life need to be giving them a very consistent message. So parents, school personnel need to really be providing a strong no-use message to young people. At the same time, and I think that what we focus more on than substances themselves are those skills that kids need to develop so that they can make healthy decisions in that moment when there is availability for substances.
And Mylene, I think that that's such an important point, that in order to say no, and I think all of us, three of us can remember when Nancy Reagan had that as part of her slogan of just say no. I think your point is well taken, that in order to say no, there are some skills that are needed in a child or any person to say no. Could you just give an example of what some of those skills would look like that you found in your work that is important for a person to have to say no?
Some of that has to do with having that decision made prior to being in that situation. So we really impress upon kids the importance of knowing how they're going to handle that situation when they are in that moment. So what's the language that they can use and practicing that language. It's oftentimes people have a misperception that it's somebody saying, oh, here you have to, you must. It's more internal pressure. So we also provide that information to young people in regards to the fact that it is this internal pressure and how do you manage that ahead of time before you're in that situation. And then we have the kids practice those skills as well as the misperceptions that they have about substances. And thinking that certain substances are safe and that they're socially acceptable and it's really no big deal. So really providing them with the correct information so that they can make an informed decision and empower them to be able to do that.
And they need to understand that anything that alters your mood can be a challenge for you.
Absolutely.
We're going to get ready to wrap up, but I want to make sure that I offer both of you a chance to share with our viewers any closing thoughts that you have on the issue of substance abuse. So, Janice, if you don't mind sharing your thoughts.
Well, I just wanted to add, if I could, that many people still think that addiction is a character defect or some kind of moral deficiency, when in fact it is a disease, the same as cancer or diabetes. And people have to develop very specific coping skills in order to be successful in their recovery attempt.
Wow, that's very powerful. Mylene?
I think really that it's important that people recognize that there is a wealth of information out there and that they receive the most accurate information, and would really encourage people to go to the Karen website and click on some of the links so that they have the information that they need, whether that's as a parent or an educator or even as a young person, in order to make those decisions or to find out the correct information. There's great resources out there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for talking with us. We're now going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
In these challenging times, your organization needs employees that maximize results. HumanWorks Training and Educational Services provides results-focused seminars for your staff. Topics include management and motivating employees, stress management, team building and leadership skills, and cultural diversity. Register today, just $89.99 or $75 for chamber members. Call 484-893-5057 or visit hwtes.com.
As we all know, the job market is difficult to penetrate. please look at the short resume on the screen and contact the email address below if this person's skills is of interest to you or your company. Let's help him get back into the saddle. The numbers we shared earlier don't lie. We need to start young and educate on substance abuse and how to prevent it. Whether as a parent, an aunt, or a brother, or just a friend, it is our responsibility to educate ourselves on the signs of substance abuse and to know what steps to take in order to save a life of someone you love and care about. And to those of you who may be in a current battle with substance abuse, you can rise above it. Robert Frost said, "The best way out is always through it." There is a number below that you can call for help, and remember, it's never too late or too early to get help. I hope today's show has been enlightening, encouraging, and empowering for you. As we wrap up, we want to let you know we're looking forward to having you join us next week when we will be discussing avoiding common financial mistakes. Thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. Be well, and I wish you the very best.
A list of resources related to today's show is available on our website, which is navigatingyourlifeshow.com. On this site, there is a connection to our Facebook and Twitter pages and to our blog. While you are there, you can also email your comments on today's show or share ideas for future shows.